What's up, guys? Orbital Bacon back with another live stream, another lore stream. Deep into the lore of Transformers, we're diving down another neon-laced rabbit hole. How's everyone doing tonight? Tailgate, Bug. Oh, hello, Battleframe. Hello. Yeah, tonight we're going to be talking about Transformers Robots in Disguise. Car Robots, as it was called in Japan. The most creative name ever for a Transformers series. Car Robots. This one, this is a mixed bag because the overall story is not very good. It's pretty generic. And of course it suffers from the long, drawn-out Japanese airing schedule where it's got a ton of episodes, like 50 episodes or something like that. And it just kind of draws out. There's some filler. It lags on a bit. But the characters in this show are absolutely amazing. Skybite, just right away. Skybite is amazing. Let's see, if I recall correctly, the original Robots in Disguise was the anime show one. Yeah, with Skybite and Megatron's 3 forms. Megatron actually had, I think it was 5 or 6 forms. He was, yeah, I believe he had like 6 forms. He was ridiculous. He was kind of like Six Shot, because I know he had a 2-headed dragon. He could turn into this giant hand. He had a jet mode and a robot mode and all sorts of crazy stuff. But it was originally an anime called Car Robots. But just to give you guys, let me get the visuals on screen here, and then we'll go over a brief overview here. So yeah, this is what we're talking about for anyone who may or may not remember. Yeah, see, I like the Autobot Brothers tailgate. I know what you're talking about from the Autobot Brothers. I got all 3 of those figures because the figures were really nice. We'll get into those as well. But for a general overview of car robots, Robots in Disguise, the original Robots in Disguise, because that name's been used a few times for toy lines and even a show a couple years ago. But when Hasbro scrapped their plans for the Transtech series that was initially intended to follow Beast Machines, material was suddenly needed to fill the void until a new series could be developed. At the 11th hour, the Japanese series Car Robots, which had screened in Japan the previous year, was selected for this task, and in the process, it became the first Transformers anime to make the leap across the Pacific in an official capacity. So we've talked about in previous streams about the Japanese continuity, like Headmasters and things like that, but I mentioned that they were never officially adapted or dubbed. I guess I don't know if adapted is the right word, but they've never been dubbed. There's a really funny unofficial dub for Headmasters, but it was never brought over here. So this isn't the first Japanese Transformers anime, but it's the first one that was officially dubbed and brought over to America. And that's only because the Beast Machines, which we talked about in the last stream, we went over Beast Wars and we talked about Beast Machines for a little bit, and it's because it crashed and burned. It was not very good at all. And I guess it was meant to launch a whole another series after that called Transtech, because they did, much like the Transmetal forms in Beast Wars, Beast Machines did start getting all these weird forms towards the end, and they kind of revitalized Cybertron with this weird techno-organic stuff. So I think they were going to try to go in this whole new direction with it, with mixed in Beast and machine elements. I know that sounds redundant, Beast Machines, but if you've seen some of the figures where they were like cybernetic animals, stuff like that, I think it was what the direction they were trying to go, but Beast Machines failed. It crashed and burned. So to fill up the void, when they're like, okay, well, we got to figure out something new, or start from scratch. Well, we got to keep something on the air just to keep Transformers relevant, keep toy sales. So they adapted Car Robots into Robots in Disguise. And what this ended up causing was, and it may be confusing for some, but what this ended up causing was a lot of I guess they would have been used in the Transtech series, but it was continuations of Beast Wars, mostly Beast Wars, not really Beast Machines, but Beast Wars characters that had carried on into Japanese anime, because Japanese anime had also done Beast Wars anime. They had continued, much like they continued G1 with the Headmasters anime, going in kind of their own direction. They're like, okay, well, you guys did your thing for season 3 and all this after that with G2 and all that. Well, we're going to do this. We're going to do this with the Headmasters. So they kind of did that. They're like, all right, well, you did your continuation with Beast Machines, but we like the Beast Wars characters, so we're going to continue it this way. And that's where Leo Convoy comes from. For anyone who's familiar with the Leo Convoy figure, because it's been done several times, even in American releases. I know Takara's had several releases of it. But that's where he came from, was from the Japanese anime for Beast Wars, which was, I think, called Beast Wars Neo, and then there was Beast Wars 2, although I probably got those backwards. But they had movies, they had series. Those were also never officially dubbed and brought over here. But so characters were carrying on from there because they did the whole Transmetal thing in that as well. And so Skybite, I mentioned him at the start of this because he's my favorite character from Robots in Disguise. He's based on a Transmetal shark called Cyber Shark. He's basically just a repaint of Cyber Shark. But it was really cool to see how they were incorporating these beast characters, mostly Transmetal, if not exclusively Transmetal beast characters, in with this new lineup of more classic Transformers, especially the Autobots. They had the Spy Changers and the Autobot brothers that were just old school car robots, as the title implies. And even Optimus was back to being a truck. He was a fire truck, but he was back to being a truck. Megatron was still a dragon. You could consider him carryover from the Beast era. I believe they even I believe they even refer to themselves as Predacons. I should start reading more of this description here, but if I remember correctly, they even refer to themselves as Predacons, and there's a whole nother faction that are called Decepticons that Scourge leads, and they're kind of repaints of the Combaticons. It's where we get Ruination, if you're familiar with the term Ruination for that repaint of Bruticus. This is where it comes from. And those were the actual Decepticons, because they were vehicle-based. And Megatron's initial initial group of lackeys, as it were all Predacons. They were all Beast Formers. So, let's see. Given Takara's method of operation at the time, Car Robots was aimed at a younger audience than that targeted by Hasbro. So that kind of gives us a little bit of credit, because normally the stuff that you would see in Japan compared to what we get is a little more severe as far as the violence and language and stuff like that sometimes. But in this case, with Beast Wars, and even with Beast Machines, as much as it wasn't received well, they were geared towards a more mature audience, not necessarily an adult audience, just a all ages kind of range, because they would have funny moments, for the kids, but they would also deal with serious plot elements and had episodic storylines that kind of expected the audience to retain the information episode to episode and watch it as an ongoing story arc. So Hasbro kind of was like, oh, well, Car Robots is straight up for kids. It doesn't really have any serious plot elements. Like I mentioned before, it runs really long as far as episode count, so you can skip around if you want to. There's only certain major moments throughout the series, but yeah. So it had a more lighthearted comedic style overall. Storylines that were typically light or goofy, and sometimes relied on bad jokes, absurd imagery, and slapstick. Which, aside from Skybite, was pretty absurd. But, well, it was all absurd, but Skybite was redeeming because he's Skybite. This approach divided fans, but regardless, comic foil Skybite became the real breakout character of the series and fan favorite, whose enduring popularity saw him break into the top 5 nominations for the 2012 Transformers Hall of Fame fans vote. Yeah, Skybite is, beloved now, with reason. Let me catch up on the chat here. Mr. N, what's up? Omegas, Bug. Alright, so, let's see. Didn't miss too much here. Did you speak of the Japanese Beast Wars Neos? I sure did, Tailgate. I spoke of the Japanese Beast Wars Neo. Yeah, that's a lot of crazy figures, crazy designs came from that. Gigatron, exactly. And what was the one? Mammoth? Big, I can't remember his name. Mammoth something. He was ridiculous looking. There's Transformers ripoff series of figures called Roadbot, where the robots only fight monsters. That sounds interesting, Mr. N. Even though it's, you know, if it's a clear ripoff, that's funny, but I'd check it out anyway. Omega says my favorite childhood: Optimus Prime, Prowl, Sideburn, X-Brawn. Yeah, Omega's the Autobot brothers. They were cool, and the figures were great. The figures were great. Skybite, who's the greatest shark in town? All right, so let's talk about Skybite, because, you know, I keep saying how this was a lighthearted series and geared more towards kids, but Skybite was the saving grace. Let's talk about him, because he really is the true star, the everything, the only thing that matters when it comes to robots in disguise, car robots, is this big goofy shark. Deep within Skybite beats the spark of a poet, a scholar, a brilliant and cultured military general who can command armies capable of conquering worlds. But without aptitude and patience, that means jack squat. And Skybite lacks both. Still, he soldiers on, for he is driven by a desperate need for approval. He needs the blessings of his commander Megatron, quite possibly more than he needs Energon. It is what sustains him, what keeps him alive, is those sweet, sweet admirations from Megatron when he does well. Oh yes, say something good to me, Megatron. But Megatron, being Megatron, doesn't dole out praise much, so Skybite tries harder and harder, getting more and more desperate. This drive is the root of all his problems. He's actually quite intelligent and physically powerful, but he pushes himself to extremes to impress his leader. When he's in control of a situation, he's a deadly effective foe. But as soon as the situation begins to slip even the smallest bit, he starts to panic and usually ends up doing something to mess things up and lose the upper hand. Relatable. When I'm focused, when I'm driven, I can get stuff done. But the slightest thing and fucked. Which makes him panic more. And so he overreacts. Yeah, Skybite, you're my spirit animal. This cyber shark, this big goofy cyber shark that likes to pretend he's a car sometimes, this is my spirit animal. It doesn't help that while he's ruthless towards Autobots, humans seem quite safe from his ire. Maybe he seems a little something of himself in these underdogs. After all, they developed his new favorite form of expression, the haiku. And they do seem rather impressed by him. Yes, Skybite loves the haiku. The form of poetry, Japanese haiku. Let's see if I can find one here. The cobalt ocean roils, zephyr blow cold, and another hapless foe is crushed beneath my heel. Poor frustrated shark. Megatron is a dumbass. Why do you bother? But he also, he's not just into haikus, into poetry. He also likes to sing little songs every now and then. One of his greatest is, "Who's the baddest shark around? Who's the smartest shark in town? Skybite, that's me." Yeah, he's wonderful. If you guys don't know about Skybite, where have you been? You don't know what you're missing. Your life is incomplete without Skybite. He swims through concrete like it was water. Like he'll just bite it, chomp it, and swim through concrete when he's chasing cars and stuff. It's amazing. Skybite is in charge of the Predacon lackeys Darkscream, Gas Skunk, and Slapper. Not that they give him any modicum of respect. In fact, they're more likely to try and shuffle the blame for their failures onto the shark. A gambit that's actually moderately successful, since Skybite is so very good at making things worse for himself. He has a hate-hate relationship with the Decepticons. That was the other faction I was mentioning that are actually vehicle-based, and they're the repaints of, or recolors of, the Combaticons. And Scourge, who is the G2 Optimus, he's got the body of the G2 Laser Prime, but this is where we get that Nemesis Prime color scheme, that classic black and teal color scheme. This is where it comes from. And he sees Scourge, Skybite sees Scourge as a threat to his position as Megatron's most favorite. It says second in command, but what it really is that he wants to be Megatron's favorite. And Scourge is more competent than Megatron. And so, I'm sorry, than Skybite. Scourge is more confident than Skybite. So he gains Megatron's praise a lot more often than Skybite, which drives him nuts. He can't take it. Can't stand it. As Megatron was dressing down the Predacon trio for their latest failure, Skybite suddenly appeared, demonstrating skill for either invisibility or teleportation that would never be displayed again, because it's anime. Skybite revealed his own plan to recover a bomb hidden in a red sports car, which is why he disguised himself as a car. He's also disguised himself as Optimus Prime. Think about the Optimus Prime. Let me get the photo up from earlier. So get this image in your mind here. This is what Optimus Prime looks like. Can you tell the difference? I don't think you can. Would have fooled anybody. What do you think, chat? How golden is Skybite? He is sort of the anime Lugnut. He's got more vocabulary. He's smarter than Lugnut, but he's still the anime Lugnut. I could see that, Bug. I could see that. Oh, what's up, Cyber? You love Robots in Disguise? See, I actually love it. It's a guilty pleasure of mine, because I know it's bad. It's really goofy and stupid, but I actually love it. Omega says the Spy Changer are awesome, and the first show have Mirage, Ironhide, Grimlock, Scourge, and Hotshot is in the show, and the leader of the Autobot Spy Changer. Yeah, see, the Spy Changers had some interesting names. They were all throwbacks to G1, being named Ironhide, Mirage, stuff like that. Scourge, of course, a lot of the names are throwbacks to G1. Not all of them, but a lot of them. You know, Scourge, even though he's the Nemesis Prime of the show, I liked his name being Scourge. I always kind of kept that for him, even when I see new figures or new toys being called Nemesis Prime. He's always Scourge to me. And yeah, the Spy Changers were pretty cool. The figures were fun. You know, they were simple. They were like kind of like the G2 leftovers of G2, I think, repaints and remolds of those. But they were fun. The Autobot brothers were cool. Prowl, Sideburn, and X-Brawn. They had original figures, new molds, new figures with rubber tires, chrome parts, weapons, and stuff like that, with the hubcaps and the bumpers and everything. They were really posable. They had a lot of ball joints, fun to transform, really cool figures. Skybite was cool because he was left over from the Beast Wars Transmetal, so he also had a lot of ball joints, posability, chrome parts, some metallic paint. Really fun figure. I know they did a remake of him in, I think it was Generations or maybe Thrilling 30, one of those lines from a year or two ago. But it just wasn't as good as the original, even though the original had a little bit of weird proportions with the giant tail that becomes his hand. But you can see in this image here, even though you can hardly notice that that's Skybite and that Optimus disguise there. Come on. But yeah, it was a little bit bizarre proportions, but still it was a really good figure. Looked show accurate. The thing about this show is that it drew all the character models based on their figures. So if the Combaticons, for instance, are based on the G1 Combaticons, they're all repaints of the G1 Combaticons. So when you look at those old G1 Combaticon figures, they're real stumpy. You know, they look good combined, but and in vehicle mode. But as individual robots, they were all pretty stumpy, and they kept those proportions in this show. So when you get the figures, even though you're getting old figures, because this show came out, it aired here in 2001, And so if you're getting, oh, I want to get the Combaticons, I want to get Ruination from Robots in Skies, even though you're getting figures that are almost 20 years old, probably closer to like 15 years old. I mean, they're, or at least the original mold. You know, obviously they've been updated with the paint job and everything, but the original mold came out 15 years ago. But you're looking at them and you're going, yep, this is how they looked in the show. So it was really nice because, like I said, even with Skybite's weird proportions on the arm, that's how the figure was. Scourge looked just like Laser Prime, G2 Prime, and it was a repaint of that figure, which is a really nice figure actually. His whole trailer was chrome. It was amazing. But you got to be careful because that stuff will chip off. But yeah, like the figures were great. Highly recommend if anybody can track some down for a good price. If you just want a fun figure, even if you're not that big a fan of show, they're just a fun figure, and they stand out too. They have a very unique design. Like the Autobot brothers were very asymmetrical. I remember Prowl would end up with the back of his car as kind of like a shield on his arm. It could launch rockets, but it looked to me like a shield. And X-Brawn was very asymmetrical. He had one arm that the front of his car was on, and had a giant fist for punching, obviously. You know, I wonder if he's got the idea from Thunder Punch. Oh, we'll have to look into that. Maybe a connection there. Omega says he wish Hasbro used Scourge name as the recolor of Optimus. Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. I don't even care about the name Nemesis Prime. I prefer Scourge just because it makes him more of a separate character to me. Omegas also remembers the voice actor of Skybite, Peter Spellos. Yeah, he did great as Skybite, and Neil Kaplan was Optimus. That's correct. Very good. Tailgate says the combiners in this series were really cool. Rail Racer was my favorite, but I do like how 2015 RiD gave a nod to the original 2001 with Grimlock having a disguise, giving a nod to Grimlock here. Yeah, and I love throwbacks like that. And yeah, man, some of the other combiners like Rail Racer were a lot of fun. I think you can kind of see him pictured off to the side here, at least the three components that make him up. But yeah, he was a train combiner, and the mode of transportation that the Autobots had around this series, it was kind of like a nod to space bridges, but because it all took place on Earth, so instead of being a space bridge, it was like this warp gate that they would drive through, and it would just take them to wherever they wanted to be. So, and the English dub was actually produced by Saban, who did the Power Rangers. They love stuff like that. But the overall story, since I keep going off on tangents here, the overall storyline for this, that if there is any, is Megatron and his Predacons want to take over the Earth. And so Optimus and his Autobots prepare by installing themselves in a secret human society masquerading as everyday vehicles. So this is Optimus and the Autobot brothers. That's who starts out. And of course, both teams expand as the show goes on. Megatron rips the first clue from Dr. Onishi's mind, looking for his aircraft, the Megastar, and he tracks the location of an ancient Cybertronian O-part, only to lose it to the Autobots. And that's kind of like the MacGuffin for this series, is the O-part that they're chasing after for a while. And I believe once Megatron finally tracks it down, he transforms to Galvatron. Or I don't know if it's the O part, but he gets something that turns, and all it does is just give him a color change, and he just starts calling himself Galvatron. Same exact form, same dragon six changer thing, but he just turns white instead of black. Calls himself Galvatron. Ultra Magnus is also in this. He's still a big tractor trailer, but he actually combines with Optimus. They do this weird two-bot combiner mode to become Omega Prime. It looks pretty cool, and all of this is, for the most part, traditional cell animation, 2D animation. There are some 3D backgrounds, like when they go through that warp tunnel, the space bridge thing, or I think I guess it would be a ground bridge. That might be what they call it, as a ground bridge. But when they go through that, I think some of the backgrounds are CG. Otherwise, it's all traditional 2D animation, which I kind of prefer, especially with Transformers, because when you get into the 3D stuff, unless it's really good, like Transformers Prime, you get like that weird Transformers Energon, Transformers Cybertron, just too stiff. And we even talked about this in the Beast Wars stream last time, where the animation, it looks good for the most part, like most of the movement is pretty good, but the character models don't age well, and that's another thing about 3D is it ages more poorly than 2D in my opinion, because yeah, 2D you can still tell how old stuff looks when you look back to stuff from the 80s, 90s, whatever, compared to now, but it still looks better in my opinion than old CG from that same time period, or at least the 90s. I don't think there was any CG cartoons in the 80s. But yeah, it was a fun show. This one, as far as any type of lore or continuity or anything, there's not a whole lot to get into because it's just very straightforward. Megatron and the Predacons show up. They want to take over the Earth. There's some MacGuffins that they fight over. They end up recruiting the Decepticons, Scourge and the Decepticons. The Autobot team grows. They get the Rail Racers. And or Rail Racer, the Rail Racers. It's their squad name. But yeah, they get the train bots and the spy changers, stuff like that, and it just kind of goes on and on until it culminates in a big final battle. But the thing that makes it worth watching in any capacity would be the characters. Would be Skybite. Megatron is actually pretty fun because he's very bombastic and over the top. He's just constantly barking orders and being kind of that classic old school villain that's always berating their underlings. So it's kind of funny to see him like that again. The Predacons, the trio that are supposed to be working under Skybite but kind of just do whatever they want, they're pretty amusing. The Autobot brothers are... Prowl is pretty bland. Sideburns hilarious because he's constantly chasing after other cars that he thinks are hot. I don't know if he thinks that they're Transformers that have a robot mode, or if he just is into cars that much, but he will chase after cars throughout the series because he thinks they're hot, like he's trying to hit on them. So that's pretty amusing. Optimus is bland for the most part, unfortunately. Him and Ultra Magnus both. There's not a whole lot going on. They just have interesting designs, and the fact that they combine into Omega Prime is pretty cool. You've got some combiner teams like the train bots. Again, there's unfortunately not too much done with personalities there, but Skybite and Megatron, the Predacons. Oh, that's the thing too. Scourge has a pretty good personality because he's just a badass that wants to get things done, and it's almost like he realizes how incompetent everyone else is. Like usually in these anime, where there's a lot of goofy characters that are incompetent, but even though the main boss villain will berate him, they just keep going. I mean, that happens to an extent in G1. Megatron lets Starscream continually get away with treachery, even though he does call him out on it. But Scourge is almost like fourth wall breaking, aware of how incompetent everyone is, and just tries to work around it. And the Combaticons are pretty cool. They all have slightly different personalities from well, I shouldn't say slightly, because Rollbar is nothing like Swindle. So yeah, it's varying degrees of different personalities from their G1 counterparts. But yeah, I would watch it for the characters, at least a few episodes. You don't have to finish it by any means. It's not one of those things where it's like, oh man, you gotta see it to the very end, and the continuity has such an effect on, a long-lasting effect on future Transformers series. Nah, it's nothing like that. I would recommend it at least watching the first few episodes, just to have fun with the characters. See Skybite, see the Spy Changers, Megatron, stuff like that. Have a little bit of fun with it, and then the other takeaway is the figures. If you can track down some of the old figures for a good price, they're awesome. And like I was mentioning before with Skybite's remakes, some of them are still around today, getting remakes with like Scourge and Nemesis Prime, as they call him. And Ruination, I know during the Combiner Wars, they did a repaint of Bruticus's Ruination as a nod to this series. Let me catch up with the chat real quick. Hey, what's up, Duke? Welcome. Bullet trains. Yeah, they were. They were, Omega says the Rail Racer was like bullet trains, and they were like those really fast speed trains. They looked cool. They looked cool. It's just how practical, you know, or impractical, I guess. Because they have to be on tracks all the time, unless they fly around, like the Denliner from Kamen Rider. Well, the Decepticons were Autobot protoforms that were sealed away. Since Scourge can have access to Brave Max, but with Megatron's evil Darkspark, he was able to change them to be evil. Yeah, that's right. I remember that episode where he was, they were scanning the vehicle modes, and I think he grabbed a tanker truck or something as he was scanning, and that's how he got his vehicle mode that ended up looking like Optimus. So yeah, but that's right, Tailgate. They were protoforms that Scourge turned them evil. I really like I said, if you watch the first, I guess, what would it be, dozen or so episodes where it kind of completes an arc. I think it's every like 12 or 13 episodes they kind of complete an arc, a little mini arc. And I would watch at least that. And if you like it, keep going. I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff about it. Cyber says he got Scourge at a couple years ago at a flea market with the trailer for like 20, and Optimus without the trailer last year for $1. That's not bad, man. I think I got Scourge. I got him. He had been opened, but he was in the box with all the accessories, the trailer, all the weapons, and everything, and he was in really good condition. And I want to say I paid like $40 for it. This was years ago, but he's a really good figure. It was a lot of fun collecting figures from Robots in Disguise, because you ended up with this nice variety of designs and the figures themselves, because they came from several generations. So I remember getting Ruination from the actual line, so it's basically the G1 Combaticons, and so you have this big brick combiner that is only a little bit taller than Scourge, because Scourge was the Laser Prime, the G2 Laser Prime, but that's a really nice figure in itself. And then you have Skybite. These were the ones that I ended up getting. Skybite, who's a Transmetal leftover from Beast Wars. So he has pretty good posability, little bit wonky proportions. And then I got the 3 Autobot brothers. And so they were pretty much spot on for the show design. You know, all their proportions were the same. Posability was really good. They had the rubber tires and everything. So it was this nice range of quality, of posability. Everything had their own looks. Like, you could look at the Decepticons, and because they were older, boxy figures, they had this set look. Skybite and the Predacons had a distinct look, being Transmetal Beast Wars. And then you had the Autobot brothers with their new anime designs, I guess, because Prowl was a Japanese police car, so they were, and Optimus was a Japanese fire truck, so they were very, very Japanese inspired designs. So everything had a very distinct look, and it's a lot of fun to collect. Like the trains, like you said, are like bullet trains. I didn't get those. I never got the train bots, unfortunately. But yeah, everything had a really cool look. Would make for a really cool display shelf. So I highly recommend it. But I want to thank everybody for hanging out in the stream. Because that's all I really wanted to cover, was just kind of go over Skybite and the characters and the fun that can be had with this show. There's not much more else to talk about. But next time we'll get into the Unicron trilogy. I'll be back Thursday with the next LoreStream for Transformers, and we'll get into the Unicron trilogy, starting with Armada. So this stuff gets pretty crazy. I know it's got some fans, but some people not so much are fans. So this one should be interesting, starting off the Unicron trilogy with Armada on the next one. So thanks to everyone hanging out. Omegas, Cyber, Duke, Battleframe, Tailgate, Bug, Mr. N Animations. And hope to see you all next time. This is Orbital Bacon, signing off.